Hi, I'm Troy, and welcome back to another On the Road video brought to you by ApplianceVideo.com. Stop. Before beginning any repair, always be sure to disconnect the power to the appliance. It is also recommended to test the outlet for proper voltage. Hello, today we're looking at a Whirlpool side-by-side refrigerator, and the components we're looking to replace is the condenser fan motor. Condenser fan motor located behind the unit, so to access it you're going to pull it out, remove the back cover. Some possible complaints you could be getting is a not cold enough or not cooling. You could also get the complaint that the center divider, the mullion for the side-by-side refrigerator, is getting warm or hot to the touch. So what we're going to go ahead and do now is unplug the unit, pull it out, access the back cover of the unit. Just a side note for you, when you're doing this repair or pulling the refrigerator out at all, you may want to have some sort of floor covering down, depending on the type of surface you're rolling on, laminate, hardwood. When pulling it out, you can damage the floor, you can leave score marks from rolling the unit out because of debris on the wheels or just the sheer weight of the refrigerator on the floor. So what we're going to do now is unplug the unit, we're going to roll the unit out and access the back panel, the back panel of the refrigerator. I'm not going to use slides today because I'm on a concrete floor, but just for your reference point. Tools needed to complete this repair is a 1/4-inch nut driver and potentially a flat blade screwdriver. So now I have the refrigerator turned around, pulled out is where you would have it, but I've got it turned around for sake of videoing what we're doing here. Something for you to take notice of is we have a water line here. You may or may not have had water connected depending on how you have it set up. But when you're pulling the unit out, to turn all the way around, you may have to remove the line, or you may have just pulled it out far enough to get to the back of the unit. So I've got mine turned around. What we're gonna go ahead and do is remove the back cover. What we have on this one are 1/4-inch screws holding it in place all the way around. And this one technically should have this cardboard tucked up under this lip. Whoever did the last repair on it did not tuck it back in place. So when we reinstall this, we'll put it back where it goes. And you also have one more that's here for the water line. So we're going to remove the screws. They're all 1/4-inch, so we can then remove this cover. So now we've got the screws removed. This cover is just going to come right off and slide right away. So we can have that removed. Now we have full access to the back of the unit. We have access to the compressor, the starting components, the fan, the fill valve. Everything that we may need to be able to replace is pretty much accessible right from here. So now that we have access to the condenser fan motor, we need to get it removed from its housing. You have a couple things you got to do to get it off. One, we got to remove the wire harness, which is right here. Fairly simple to do. Push in the clip to release it and remove the plug. So now that it's off and out of the way. The next thing we have to do is remove the actual fan blade. This fan blade should just push right off. Caution when you're doing this, I'm going to actually put them on myself, is the edges on this metal is unfinished, meaning that it hasn't been deburred, meaning that it will slice your hand open really quick. So what I do is I put on either mechanics gloves or some sort of glove to protect my hands from the edges as I'm pushing it off. So what I'm going to do is you can either reach in from the front and try to pull it off. You can try to push from the back to get it off. I'm going to do a combination of both, so I might get in your way a little bit to see. So I'm going to push from the back, and it came right off on this one. Sometimes you have to pull it from the front. Now I'm just gonna remove the fan blade. This fan blade as well is going to go on one way. You'll notice there's no hole on this side. There's the hole on this side. That's where it's going to slide back on to the shaft of the motor. We're gonna set this aside. With that set aside, you'll notice that you got your dryer, some hard piping on this side, so it's really hard to get it off this way. But on the back side of the fan bracket, there's 2 screws, the 1/4-inch screws that hold this motor in position. We're gonna go ahead and remove those. The easiest thing that I've found to use to get these off is my extension for my drill with a small ratchet that I can put onto to gain access inside there to take it off. So I'm gonna leave my gloves on just because I don't want to catch myself on one of these edges, and we're gonna go ahead and remove the 2 screws that are on the back side. So now on this side we have 2 1/4-inch screws we have to remove. You may not be able to see the exact position of the screws, but they are connected to the metal bracket right here. This metal bracket comes down and back, and there's 1 screw at the bottom on this one, and there's 1 screw at the top on this one. So I'm gonna use my nut driver or my ratchet and my 1/4-inch, and I'm gonna remove those screws. You got limited working space, so you gotta just make sure you get them off of there. Slight turns at a time. Remove one, and I'll get in to remove the other one. Once you get the screw loose enough, you may be able to do what I just did and remove the ratchet from it and loosen it up by hand. Once you've got them both out, you probably just noticed the motor fell. It's not easy to get it out from this side. If you reach back in from the front side, you can grab it and pull the motor right out. Now that we have the motor out and in hand, we'll be able to go ahead and replace this motor. All right, so now we have our motor back in hand. We're gonna go ahead and reinstall it. To do so, we're gonna put it back in through the front, position it so our harness plug is facing out, because remember, we have to plug in our harness to it over here. So we have that. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna start with the top screw again, because it gives me more room to be able to start to tighten it down. I have a magnetic bit, which works out great because it's gonna hold my screw for me. I don't have to worry about it falling as much. So I'm gonna start by taking my fan, positioning it back inside here. I'm gonna let it set down in there for now, it's just in there. I'm gonna try to reach in from the back side and then get it positioned just about where it's gonna go. With it positioned about where it's gonna go, I can go ahead and reach in with my other hand and start this top screw. Yep. Now I've got the top one started. I'm not gonna tighten it down all the way yet. I just wanted to kind of hold it in position. And then I'm gonna see about installing my bottom one. This one can be a little more tricky because you gotta reach down, you're trying to get it in there at a weird angle. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it started. You may lose visual for a second, but we'll get it started for us here. Hold the motor about where it goes. Get it back into its hole. And now I can start these by hand, tighten down for the most part, or at least start it in there. I'm going to take my nut drive or my ratchet again with my 1/4 inch, and I'm going to finish tightening these back down. Now that I have those tightened back down, I'm gonna plug my wire harness back in. It's gonna go in pretty much one way, mainly because you'll see your prongs for your leads, and then your second opening here, which is where the clip goes into. We'll slide this back in. It's plugged back in position. So we're good there. Now we're gonna go ahead and put the fan blade back on the front. If you remember, the fan blade is closed on one side, open on the other. That is so you know that this fan blade goes on one way and one way only, so it'll move the air properly. So we're gonna take and slide it back into position. Find where it goes on, slide that back. It will bottom out against the front side. It's back in there. We have no obstruction. With the fan and the blade back on, we're gonna go ahead and now put the back cover on. So now that we've installed our new components, we're gonna go ahead and put the back cover back in place. This cover, you can tell, has screw holes along the bottom to screw into the bottom of the unit. It's got this lip up at the top, which is where this part slides into. So we're gonna position that inside that lip. Once it is inside the lip, we can set this back in place. First, I'm going to reposition the hoses. Slid back in place. You can use the bottom screw holes to match up the approximate location of it. And see where you're at. I'll go ahead and just by hand typically position one in place so that it holds one side up. I'll come back across to the other side, make sure I stay tucked into my lip at the top. Start a second one. Once they are in position, now we can go ahead and reattach the rest of the screws to hold the unit in place. A side note, or just a note for you, when you're screwing these side ones in, you want to make sure you got your torque turned down and you don't want to tighten them too far because these will rip very easily. Going to attach the final screws for the bottom. Install the screw on the far side. Now that we have those in place, we still have to reattach our water line back to where it goes. Take our water line, put it down in approximate position with the screw going through, and tighten that one back into position. Once we got that back on, the water line back in place, we can reattach our water line, plug the unit back in, and that will complete your repair. Thank you for watching another quality repair video brought to you by ApplianceVideo.com.